topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Park. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Park's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyapark.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyapark.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Park.
Good morning, listeners. It's Tuesday morning, and of course, I'm excited to be here with you all because I get to be with you. So, one very exciting thing happened as a fellow writer to another fellow writer. We were just having a conversation, and I was experiencing a writer's stuck. And this is actually one of my clients who I'm helping her develop her own story. And she was so kind and gave me the same advice back. Divya, what if you were to walk away for a couple of days and not look at your book? And it's amazing. We all know the answers. It's just sometimes we need someone to remind us or be there for us. So take a moment to be there for someone, and let's bring in our guests. So welcome, Evelyn and Natalie.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Oh, I think so. We are going to have a very exciting conversation today. So, Natalie, if you recall a moment with your mom, a wonderful moment from your childhood, do share.
Oh, wonderful. I had a wonderful childhood. I was raised in the country, and in Ocala, Florida, which is just about an hour north of Orlando. So needless to say, we had all the luxuries of being able to go and to go to Disney World and places like that. But I'll tell you, my family, we come from a very humble family. And a very hardworking family. And that really, because of the hard work, that really shaped my life and my professional life. As I soon, when I first got into the professional world, working in the Florida Senate, and then from there being an executive director and then a CEO, a contract lobbyist, all of that hard work came from my childhood experiences with my family and the hard work and the ethics that was instilled in my life at a very young age.
And Divya, she does that now.
Yes.
Let me tell you, this is the hardest working person. She will be on the phone all day talking to people and encouraging them and exuding leadership. And then she will stay up 2:00 in the morning working on something. So when she says she loves work, I do. I enjoy it. And so don't enjoy work, it's a different life. But if you really enjoy your job and your hobbies and, that really shows. And I'm just very fortunate I have that opportunity.
And also, it's not work then, right? It's living life. Because
Exactly.
a lot of people say, I need to have work-life balance. But when your work is your life and when you're enjoying it, then it doesn't seem like work. You are in the flow, you're living your life. It's a paradox. It is when you have that clear-cut distinctions that makes the difference.
But Divya, it also is that, you really have to, you talk about balance. And definitely, I understand that. I think that's extremely important. When you do love your job, you really do get very much engaged in it. But when it becomes something that is much more than a job, something you really enjoy, besides my day job that I do and I love and I spend a lot of time on it, we are also authors. And then what we do is late in the evening, because I work till what, 7 o'clock or, beyond that. Late in the evening, then we work together. And to me, it's not like, oh my gosh, I got to do something else. I'm so exhausted. Yes, I am, but I enjoy it. And when you find something you love doing,
Mhm.
what you want to do is you find that time. It's a priority. So I have made sure in order to get a book that we wrote out in 1 year, I actually had to make it a priority where I work at least 1 hour a day, no matter what, 1 hour a day. But of course, it was a lot more in order to get it done.
And Divya, it's very interesting. As I said, we have this book, and most people will say, "Oh, I can't stand marketing." We've written the book, but then we have to market it. Let me say, we enjoy it, and it has, just like we were saying, it has to be something that you love, that you love doing, or you'd say, "Oh no, just give up." And we're not going to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's important that you enjoy, and I really like what y'all are sharing is that setting that priority. So tell us, like, Natalie, you've been through so many careers in your life. How did you know when to pivot?
When you felt it was right. When I finished the Florida Senate, I was there for 10 years. At that point, this was several decades ago, maybe 3 decades ago. And at that time, it was pretty much of a man's world. And so I was the youngest female staff director. And I enjoyed it. I loved it, and I respected my senators. I appreciated it, and I appreciated the process of the Florida legislature. But when I left, I just knew it was time. It was one of those things when you feel that you have reached your goals, you're at a level that you won't be able to break anymore, and that there's some other things out there. And so that's what I chose to do.
Well, that's very powerful. How did you get into the Senate piece? Because so many times what happens is, there's always a stigma associated with politicians. They could
Yes.
be the best people in the world, and yet we, as a society and as a people, as a collective, we look at them with some skepticism. So, what got you in there, and what were some of the learnings from that time?
Well, how funny is that? Because see, I was raised in politics. My dad, actually, he ran political campaigns when I was younger, and also he ran for office. It was hard for me because he lost. I think it was 3 campaigns and lost. And then my mother actually ran and lost by just a few votes. So you see, politics is very tough.
But we had a brother that did
That
win,
actually
and he
did.
became he became a representative in the Florida House. Yeah.
So politics is kind of our life. But you know what? I didn't want to go in it because election, it was just like I had a pit in my stomach every election. It was like I just could, it was, we're going to lose, or if we lose, that's how much time and effort we put into this. And so I didn't want to do it. So I went to college, and I did what I loved, and that was art. And I realized, well, maybe I'm just not going to make money there, be able to have a professional job. But I went into television broadcasting. And from there, I volunteered with a TV show called Today in the Legislature. And when I volunteered, they kept me on. And then I found an internship. I got an internship with the Florida House. And that was when a job opened up in the Florida Senate. That's when I took that job. That's how I got in. And I really did not even want to be in politics.
That's interesting. And life takes a detour, and it takes us. And as you said, so y'all are definitely a family with a very strong and strength and like, the courage running through your bloods. Like, it's not easy to lose. And you kept coming back. So you've made a mark on it. So how would you say, like, what were some of your defining moments during your career at Senate and where you impacted
Oh,
people's lives?
I was just going to tell how we got into writing the book, but you asked a question about the Senate, so go ahead with that. And
The most impactful would be when we had legislation that really positively impact families. And I was a major part of that because not only was I guiding policy and budget items, but I was really working personally with the senators to make sure their priority bills or the president's priority bills got passed. And so anything to deal with children or with seniors, I really have a heart for the aging and seniors, which I eventually went into following the Senate. But those were my years when we were able to do that, and then I was able to get them really maximum exposure on the Today Show, things like that. So that really was a priority of mine. It was a wonderful time in Florida Senate.
what I
That's
was just
fantastic.
going to interject was this: you asked about losses. Actually, when I lost my election in
Mhm.
1992, my husband said to us, "Why don't you and Natalie go to Europe?" And we said, "No, you can't go. We can't go. We can't afford it, can't take time off. And who's going to take care of the dogs?" And he said, "Just go. I will take care of the dogs." So out of this loss that we had has developed this interest in travel and interest in writing. So I just wanted to interject that because you mentioned about sometimes from losses like this can develop a whole morph into something that is really that you want to do, which was
Absolutely. We'll come back to it.
yeah.
And the losses are something, we call them as losses, but these are growth opportunities and provide our life different directions.
Mhm.
So you mentioned, Natalie, that you were interested in supporting seniors. So walk us through the journey, how you went through that and ended up being a CEO.
From the Florida Senate, I had an opportunity when a new governor came in, Governor Bush, to work in his administration with one of the departments. So I really had an opportunity to be able to see the department life, where my side was the basic legislative side of it. So I got to see the executive branch and be a part of the executive branch. And then from there, I had the most wonderful opportunity that just kind of fell in my lap. It was with the Alzheimer's Association at a state level. And so what I did, I was hired to be their director of policy at the state level. And what we did was we just did incredible work those 7 years. We brought in so many volunteers and people, so many people that have been touched by Alzheimer's or dementia, and brought them in to get engaged. We even had, we called Rally and Tallies, bringing caregivers up to Tallahassee. We had 1 year, almost 500 people from around the state come up to Tallahassee and really advocate for enhanced policies for caregivers and people with dementia. And so with that, we did extremely well. From there, I was promoted up to Washington, D.C. with the National Alzheimer's Association and worked in the D.C. office for 2 years. I was the director of systems change. So they were working with
So
with the Health and Human Services, and we worked directly with them on systems change.
very nice. So tell me, like, what were the lessons, like, as you're growing this experience? A lot of women kind of think, this is not for me, this is for me. And you have kind of taken an unconventional route. So, what would your message be to those women, to our listeners?
I would say this: go the way your heart is telling you. Now, why did I say that? See, with the hard work that I have been instilled in when I went, growing up in our family,
Mhm.
I felt that I probably could have gone to some big corporation and work in a big corporation or so on. But I chose this way because also my family, my dad was very much into helping individuals at one time, very early on in my life. I really don't even remember too much about it, but he was a preacher. So it's our family has always been helping others. My mother was a teacher, then ended up becoming a professional, a professor, and then a medical writer. But our lives and all of our family and all the siblings, we were really and kind of had that instilled in our lives of really helping individuals. So I didn't go the route of the big corporations. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm not saying that you're actually not helping people if you do that. But this is just the way I chose that from the Florida Senate and getting that experience and then working with a national organization that really supports individuals in a very vulnerable time, especially
Mhm.
family caregivers, and to be able to support and help policy and shape policy and the way things are done here in the state of Florida. And then from there, I was actually a contract lobbyist for a few years. I enjoyed that. And I actually did take on a lot of nonprofits, organizations that really had no idea of how to get anything done in the legislature. And then from there, I became the CEO of the Florida Association of Managing Entities. Now, what is that? We oversee Florida's behavioral health safety net system. So my members of my association, and there's only 7. So you're saying, how could that be association just 7? These 7 people, these 7 organizations manage $1.2 billion in the state of Florida. And we do oversee behavioral health services. We develop networks for providers that serve individuals with a mental illness, with substance use, prevention, opiate addictions, suicide. I mean, all of that particular area, housing, so that they can recover. So that's what we do. We don't provide the services. We manage and we pay for
Mm.
the services.
Now, there can be so many hard times, right? That there's all these causes that you're talking about, so much need for them. They're worthy causes, and people are really suffering. And then you may have the budget constraint. So, how do you manage that? Where you're looking at some of the programs, and as individuals, we all have these questions like, how are you balancing the priority of that?
You make it a priority. You make it a priority with the legislature. And of course, how do you do that? You really develop relationships with legislators. Now, what normal people, and I say normal, notice the word normal, they hire contract lobbyists. That was something I used to do. We aren't allowed to do that because we have state and federal dollars, so we're not allowed to contract. But the good news is I come from that world, so I know it, and I used to do it. So it's one of these things that's really educating our leaders, our in the executive branch, whether it's the governor or the departments, and our senators, our House members, and also our local leaders, our sheriffs, and so on, understanding what is really needed, and then getting their support for us to really reach out and be successful with policy issues or budgetary issues.
You can see where this is part of leadership, which you have asked us about how leadership, how we look at leadership. And this is it. Natalie has a whole host of training that she does in the area of leadership, which is she in working with her people, she never assumes that they they will think a certain way. So she has to work with them and have good communication skills to do this. So this is what we feel is she very, very good at that.
And it's all a part of leadership.
Yeah.
It's just, really reaching out, never assuming anything, asking questions, building a consensus, engaging your board members or with your or staff to get your goals or get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And so there may be a lot of young women or young men who may be wanting to get into the politics. And as you said that, you can make a difference. So can you elaborate a little bit more about how does the contract lobbying work? And if they cannot do anything, you did mention about educating and engaging. And so what are some of the ways to influence and just some thought provoking actions that our young ones can take?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. What's the difference between lobbying and educating? Okay. So, or advocating. Okay. So lobbying is actually when you are paid, you have a contract and you are paid to actually go and try to influence whether it's the executive branch or the legislative branch or even local government. You actually in some states you actually have to register to lobby for local government. So that is lobbying when you actually get paid. Advocating is different. Advocating is educating. So advocating, you're not getting paid. That is the difference. You don't have a contract for that purpose to go influence leaders on a certain position. So those are the two differences. Now, how do you get into that? If you want to be a contract lobbyist, my suggestion would be is to start volunteering or be an intern. Be an intern with a legislator or in a legislative office or volunteer. See, notice the word volunteer, because that's what I did. I volunteered for Today in the Legislature. That's how I actually got in. And then from there, you may have an opportunity to be there as jobs open up, and then you'll have that experience that they're looking for. So that's how you start off. Now, as advocating, you can actually do the same. You can volunteer because that's really what you're doing. You're volunteering. You can volunteer if you are interested in advocating for saving, the animals. You're against, dog pounds or killing dogs if they're captured. If you're volunteer and then start working with their advocacy group and go to their state capital or go to their local government and start working that way. That way you'll learn the grassroots of it. That's how I started.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense that you're learning the nuts and bolts of it. And while you're in the thick and thin of it, there's something to be said about the power of proximity, which opens up doors.
Yes.
So while you've been doing this, you mentioned about creating that priority for your book. So tell us about how did you get into the writing of the book? What is it about?
Well, our book is called Have a Love Affair with Travel. And we started about a year and a half ago.
About a year and a half ago.
Yeah. And we were able to get the book done in a year. But Mother, how did we start writing this book?
Actually, I was writing. By profession, I am a medical writer, and I have written 22 books for publishers on gene therapy and genetics and so forth. But we decided we love travel so much. And I had been writing little articles for, some of the local magazines and so forth. And one of the editors said, why don't you write about something that only you and Natalie can experience. So we started talking about that.
Mhm.
Hey, what are some of the things? What happened to us under the Eiffel Tower? What happened to us riding a camel in Tunisia? So we started writing, and we had 101. We polished it down to 79. So that is the way we got started writing on this. And as she said, we would have to write because I was teaching, but bless COVID's heart, it cut out a lot of the class, going to class and so forth. And actually, we had some time that we could talk a little bit more about some of these things, about our experiences. So that is how we got started in writing.
And how many countries both of you have traveled?
Well, we just got a brand new country just 2 weeks ago. So we're up to 89 countries, all 50 states and all continents. That means we went to Antarctica. So,
and that's our favorite.
That's one of my favorite places. Actually, I don't want to live there, but it's one of my favorite places to visit.
And so tell us like a couple of stories from your book.
Well, do you really want to know about our experience under the Eiffel Tower?
Sure.
This is one of our stories. Now, most people, when you go to the Eiffel Tower, it is so exciting because you're going to have your picture taken. Here am I standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, and send it back, put it on social media, send it to all your friends and so forth. So we were going to the Eiffel Tower, and we looked over, and there was a big black cloud coming up. And it just all of a sudden started pouring. And Natalie and I said, oh my gosh, we will get under that Eiffel Tower. So we ran under this big steel dome at the time when a lightning was flashing, thunder was roaring, and water was splashing under our feet. And all of these tourists were coming into, and they knew that was going to be the end of us. So Natalie and I looked at each other and said, if this is the end, we've had a wonderful life. But what happened was, just as it left, just as we looked, it went away. And we said, oh my goodness, we'll brush off our hair and take off our wet clothes. We went out and had our picture taken. Here we are standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, and we sent that back. So that was one of the types of stories. And then we have a smart tip on each one of this. And this one was, if you're ever under the Eiffel Tower, things may happen there or may happen any place. Just be prepared.
Yeah, so
we weren't prepared for that story.
Right. The moral of the story is that things happen to you and it's out of your control. But if it's out of your control, you can't worry about it. You can't control it, right? So you do things that are in your control, and that's all a part of leadership too. So the whole thing is that here we're underneath this Eiffel Tower, and everybody just goes there to take pictures of it. But these stories are about things that doesn't happen. They don't happen to anybody else, and so that's what's so interesting about travel, because you can get 101 stories out of the Eiffel Tower, right? But there are so many things, and when things like this that's out of your control, you make the best of it. And then you just go on and you go on. And for us, we went on to be a tourist. We did the selfies in front of the Eiffel Tower like everybody else did. But those are the 79 stories that we have. Actually, we started going out before it was published. We started going out and speaking about the book and some stories. And we had so much of an interest in it that they said, you know what? I've got a story. I was in Saudi Arabia and I had an issue there. And so they explained it to us. And we have 8 of those stories in our book that are actually from other people. They were so good and so compelling that we wanted to include that and to include their stories. So these stories are really they're human stories, things that happen. Some aren't good. We were actually in Tunisia, and that was wonderful. Love Tunisia. I would do anything to go back to Tunisia. But we were there during the Arab Spring, and we did not even know it at the time until we flew back to the United States. And then all of a sudden we turned on the news, and there was that place right there I was at yesterday, right the square of Tunis, where they were having riots there, and then the government was taken over, and then that spread to Egypt. And we did not even know it. But the moral of that story was, before you go to any country, you need to make sure that you check the Department of State's website to see if there's any issues going on, because we probably would have known at that time, because it actually started prior for us flying in.
What happened was this young man set himself on fire. And because of that, and they took pictures of this, and this is what spread throughout social media and started the Arab Spring. And it happened just a day or so before, but we kept hearing people chitter chat and talk, and we knew
looking at
something
us.
was going
Yeah,
on. And they said, "Okay, get back on this plane. It's
Make
going
sure
to be
do not miss the plane. It's
Right.
the last one. It's the last one out, and we got on, but now we know why. We know.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like wonderful. So if our listeners wanted to kind of find your book, find you all, where could they find you and the book?
Well, we have a website. It's www.travelersatheart.com. And travelers at heart, you spell it out. So it's not a symbol, at symbol. It's www.travelersatheart.com. It's also on Amazon. So they can look up Have a Love Affair with Travel. I think you can even type in Affair with Travelers, because I tried that, but it's Have a Love Affair with Travel. And it will come up. It's this beautiful, bright yellow book that comes up, and that's where you can find us. It's the easiest way. I know we're in Barnes and Nobles and other bookstores, but Amazon's the easiest way to get our book.
Any last thoughts for our listeners and audience?
We would just like to say that leadership, and you were talking about how important it is for people that are becoming leaders to remember that they have a lot of things that they can accomplish, and they can do this by not being arrogant, by listening. And Natalie, what would you say would be the number one thing that
I would say? Not assume. Don't assume anything. Always ask questions. Flexibility is strength. That is strength. It's not a weakness. Hospitality, being gracious, not being arrogant, like Mother said, and respect for others, respect for their point of view. I always listen to other people's point of views before I ever make a decision on anything or assume anything, because they may have a better idea or a better thought.
So, one of our favorite places, and we would love to just mention this to you, was India. We absolutely loved India, and we would go back there in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, of course, we have a lot of other countries where we go back, but see, we've been to 89 countries, and I am 90. And by the time I'm 100, I want to go to 100 countries. So we have a few more to go, a few more countries to get into.
Well, we wish you all the best, that you go ahead and get to 100 countries, and kudos to you. It's a beautiful journey that you are sharing. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't get along with my mom," but this is a beautiful example, like, that you can do a lot of things together. So thank you for joining us.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And Divya, we are writing another book right now, and it's called Have a Love Affair with the USA, in which we only use stories from the USA. And it's really hard because there's so many.
But it will
Right.
come out next year.
Next year.
Well, thank you for joining us. And thank
you.
you, wonderful listeners, for being part of our show, because you are the spirit and soul of our show. Reach out to us. Let us know how we can serve and support you. Thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. Be well and take care until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.